Okay, back again, talking about writing. So there's one there's one magic trick. Well, there are many magic tricks, but there's one main magic trick when you write fiction, and it's what the writers know, and possibly the astute readers realize. But it's something a writer can do that makes all the difference in the world with a story, with their story. Uh, when you tell a story, you do scenes. You tell a scene, and then it's usually the plot is it's something happens, and you have a scene about it. Then something else happens, and there's another scene, and so on and so forth until the story uh, transpires and goes through everything and ends. Um, in doing a story, though, what the writer has at his uh, fingertips is the sequel. So you have scenes that you write and get the reader interested, and then you have sequels. The sequels are is part of the magic, and the sequels come after scenes. Now they can come at different times, but it's a scene and then a sequel that leads to then another scene. And that sequel is something that you as a writer have at your disposal and should use it all the time, because it makes the story, it does a lot besides making sense of the story. It also provides a passage of the story, pacing of the story, and the transition from scene to scene. So what is sequel? Sequel is such a simple, basic idea and mechanic. You have a scene, something happens in the scene, and then what you do is you stop the scene and you have the character, the main character in the scene, react to what has just happened, and then come up with a plan for what he's going to do about it. He sets up the next scene. So sequel is a little bit after a scene, that kind of where the character is reactive to the scene and has a plan to what he's going to do next. This takes the reader through the scene and then sets the reader up for expectation for the next scene. So it's just a beautiful mechanic that can be used by writers. Scene is action, and sequel is reaction. Scene is when something happens, and then sequel is when the main character takes in what just happened and then moves on, says what he's going to do next, and then that's your next scene. So it provides a transition, and it provides forward movement, and it provides anticipation by the reader. The sequel is a very small part of a story, but is so integral into a story and so helpful for the reader and the writer to make the story move forward. So when you write a story, you have scenes, and you know what a scene is. It's what's happening in a story. So let's say, for instance, your major character's in a diner, and he's waiting for someone for information, and he meets that person, and the scene is whatever the scene is. Maybe the person is giving him a hard time, or maybe he's lying. The protagonist knows he's lying to him, or whatever transpires in the scene happens, and then the guy leaves. The guy who he meets leaves, and then you just don't end it there. Your main character sits back and sort of, this is the time to get in a character's head, like interior thoughts, and said, that guy was lying to me. I know he was lying to me, and well, he was lying to me because of this and this and this. Well, he's not going to lie to me again. And then the character comes up with a plan what he's going to do. Now, it could be an all interior thought, or it could be a plan that you could somehow portray, maybe in a phone call or something. So what you're doing is you're setting up the next scene. You're giving the reader information to, and then it's also anticipation for the next scene. And so maybe the guy calls his boss and say, well, I just met so and so, but he was lying to me. I know he was lying to me. And the guy says, what are you going to do about it? What's your next thing? I said, well, I'm going to his house tonight, or I'm going to bug his office, or I'm going to put a tracer on his car. And then he hangs up. So then you know what the next step is going to be. And then you get, the reader knows what the next step is, and the reader will then anticipate that and look forward to that. That's just a very simple example. So follow scene with sequel, have that be the bridge to another scene. And then again, if you look at your books, you'll see where they do that, where they have the something happen, the pullback, and then the plan of what to do next, and then going for that in the next chapter. It's very easy and a lot of fun to do, and it does really fills out your story, and it's makes it really interesting. So that's that, scene and sequel. I mentioned a book in my first video, one of the earlier videos, about scene and structure by Jack Bickham, and I put a link to that on one of those videos, and that's where he talks about sequel. He talks about scene and sequel in that book extensively. So if you want to learn more about that, look that up. You probably can just search on Google, the Google machine, and look for scene and sequel, and there'll probably be a lot of information on it. So that's it, scene and sequel. It's one of your magic tricks as a writer when you write fiction. Have a great day.